Hello, math friends. Today I'm going to teach you how to play a game called First to 20. This is a great game for a first grader and a second grader because they're working on their addition and subtraction facts within 20. So, great game for those ages. The materials that you need for this game are a sheet of paper, a pencil or a pen, something to write with, and just one die. If you don't have a die, you can just go to the internet and Google virtual dice, and there's some options for dice that you can get to roll on the computer. The first thing you want to do is to create a recording sheet for each player. We used one sheet of paper and put both players on the same sheet. You can see player one has a chart. It has a roll and then the total. Very simple chart to make. And then player two is right underneath it with the roll and the total. The goal of the game is to be the player that makes 20 exactly. So you have to be exactly at 20 by the end of the game. Pretty simple game, and it goes really quickly. Also, at the end, I'm going to show you some modifications you can make to the game as well. So when it's your turn, you're going to roll the one die, and you're going to add that number to your previous roll. So this is how our game started. Player one rolled a 6, so that was recorded as a roll of 6, and the total would be 6 because to start the game, you just start with a score of 0, so 0 plus 6 is 6. And player two rolled a 1, so you can see 1 is recorded on the chart there. We're going to just continue to roll the one die and add it to our number. However, if you roll a number and when adding it to your total, it will take you over the number 20. You must subtract that number instead of add that number. So as the game goes on and you're getting closer to the number 20 or in the teen numbers, it may start happening where you have to subtract those numbers instead of add them. The game is over when one player has exactly 20. So I'm going to show you just a little bit of what our game looked like as we continued to play. This was what it looked like after our second turn. So player one had 6 and rolled a 2, and player two had 1 and rolled a 6. This is a great opportunity to just think aloud about some strategies for each fact. We're always encouraging our first graders and our second graders to use strategies with their addition and their subtraction instead of always counting out by ones. So there may be a helper fact or a strategy that they can use. So in this roll, when you had 6 and you rolled a 2, just modeling, well, I know that if I add 2 to 6, it's the next even number. It's just like counting by twos. Or I know when I add 1 to a 6, it's just the next counting number. So sometimes just taking that time to think aloud about how you know the answer to your facts is really helpful in our fact development for our first and second graders. This is what it looked like after another turn. So you can see player one rolled a 3, so they're still adding because it wouldn't put them over 20. And player two rolled a 2. So just modeling some strategies here. Player one may say something like, I know that 8 plus 2 is 10, so 8 plus 3 must be 11. Or I know that 7 plus 2 would be the next odd number, just like counting by twos with your odd numbers. And a little later in the game, I just kind of recorded and skipped ahead here. We're getting close. You can see that player one has a total of 17 at this point in the game, and player two has a total of 19. So you may be thinking right now, and a great question to ask in the game is, what number are you hoping to roll? So if player one's at 17, what are they hoping that they get on their next turn? And I'll show you what player one got on their next turn. Player one rolled a 5. So at this point, player one has to subtract 5 from their total of 17, because if they added 5, they would be greater than 20, and you can't be greater than 20. So at this point in the game, you see player one had to subtract. Player two was at 19 and rolled a 4. So the same thing happened to player two. because if you were to add 4 to the number 19, it would take you above 20, and you can't go above 20. So player 2 also had to subtract. This is what our board looked like at the end of the game. We just kept rolling and playing until you get exactly 20. Player 1 happened to be the player that got to 20 first. If you look closely at player 2's board, you'll see that they had to subtract twice in a row. They subtracted the one that we just looked at, where they were at 19 and they had to take away 4. That put player 2 at 15. And on the next roll, they rolled a 6. Well, you can't add 6 to the number 15 because it would be greater than 20. 15 plus 5 is 20. So 15 plus 6 must be greater than 20. So they again had to subtract. If you're able to add and it won't take you above 20, then you add. But if you can't, because it will take you above the number 20, you must subtract. So they ended up having to subtract before they could add back up again. Some variations to this game. It's a really fast and simple game, and you can change it up to work on different skills. So one thing that you can do is you can start at the number 20 and count down to 0. So this would be first to 0 is the winner. And that's a great modification because a lot of kids are really great with their addition facts, and then the subtraction facts take a little bit longer, and they just need more practice with that. So you can play up to 20, and then you can even play back down to 0 if you want it on the same game board. Start at 20, and every time you roll, you're subtracting on that roll. And then the only difference would be the closer that you get to 0, if you're going to go below 0, you would have to add instead of subtract. And then first to get exactly 0 would be the winner. You could change it to first to 30 instead of 20, and maybe even use a 10-sided die. A lot of people don't have a 10-sided die at their house, but if you go to the online virtual dice, they do have that option to have a 10-sided die. So those would give you the digits 0 through 9, so you can practice with some larger add-ins. And you could also use 2 dice and change the game to be first to 100. So you would play the game exactly the same way and roll your 2 dice, find the sum of those 2 dice, and then play up to 100. So this is a great game, works on many different skills, and I hope you have fun playing first to 20.